perhaps we'll stick with the experimental theme. This session, we're going to see retail leaders sharing their insights into developing original company culture, and this also to create and drive successful organizations. This panel is going to be led by Professor Chris Roebuck from the Cass Business School, where he is the visiting professor of transformational leadership. And this session is going to look at how you can find the balance between company culture and strong and effective leadership. And we're going to be welcoming on the panel representatives from the Container Store, Shop Style, the Coca-Cola Company, and Majid Al Futtaim. So please welcome Professor Chris Roebuck, who shall lead this panel.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a treat in store for you. One of the most diverse panels I have ever seen, whose experience will amaze you. Panel, would you like to come up and take your seats? Good to see you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
See you again. Thank you.
Welcome, Ahmed. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a few introductions so you know who you're dealing with. On the end, we have Kip Tindell, an iconic figurehead from the United States, Chairman and Chief Executive of the Container Store, whose key lines are employees first and conscious capitalism, whose little gem of an idea started way back in the paint store with Garrett Boone of Montgomery Ward. That's why he appreciates employees, because he has served as one for many years. First store in Dallas, 1978, and the rest is history. Ahmed is chief executive of Majid Al Futtaim Ventures. Previously Booz Allen, Procter & Gamble, a nice breadth of experience. His key lines are lead by example and great moments every day for everybody. We then have Genevieve Kunst, who's the MD of Shop Style, expert online retailer. Thomas Cook previously, Amazon, T-Mobile, but lurking in the deep depths of her past is a family business in America that she has contributed to. And finally, we have Julie Hamilton, Global Chief Customer Officer of Coca-Cola, who started at Coca-Cola in 1996. And she doesn't know I'm going to say this. Described by the Wall Street Journal as a veteran.
Yes, yes. That's a little scary, but yeah.
She will tell you what she thinks of that comment. So we have a great panel, and you also manage the Walmart relationship, which was obviously an interesting experience. So let's dive straight into the meat of what we're talking about: change, leadership, the retail world, the brave new world that we're all trying to get to. So would each of you like to give us some insight into the change culture that you're aspiring to achieve what you need to achieve in your business? Ahmed, do you want to?
Sure. Majid Futtaim, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the company, we are the leading shopping mall developer operator in the Middle East and North Africa. We're also the largest food retailer and the largest cinema exhibitor in our market. Financially, we're a $6 billion revenue business, $1 billion in EBITDA, but that's not the way we choose to define ourselves. And actually, that's not the complete story of what Majid Futtaim is all about. We have deliberately decided to position the company about creating great moments for everyone every day. And it's a very simple definition, but it's also a very deliberate one, because it starts with creation. We're not in the business of copying, we're not in the business of imitating, we're really in the business of original creation. We are not in the business of shopping mall, entertainment, or retail. It's all about creating experiences and moments that are accessible to everyone, repeatable, and exciting. And that has really been the starting point of the culture transformation at Majid Futtaim. We're very fortunate because we're a very young company. We operate in a very young market. We're only 20 years old. So we don't have a legacy that we need to change. We have a blank canvas that we can use to sort of shape our future and our culture. And actually, that phrase of creating great moments for everyone every day has filtered through into very practical management tools. It's part of the way we choose, reward, and promote our leaders internally. It's part of the compensation, even for floor staff, because if you're not creating great moments in your shop, your quarterly bonus doesn't open up. So it has become a real sort of part of the way we do business every day. And I think it has served us well. I mean, we're a company that 5 years ago was half of the size of what we are today. So we've doubled financially. And when we look back at what were our plans 5 years ago and where we are now, actually it's difficult to bridge the numbers. A lot of the projects got moved, contractors are late. We had a slight challenge with the financial crisis in Dubai in 2008, 2009. We had the Arab Spring in 2011, 2012. And actually, when you look at the bridge between the plans and what we've achieved, there is a part that you cannot explain. And we believe at Majid Futtaim that this is true or due to a unique culture that has enabled us to perform, I would say, above average, despite a very challenging market condition. So my concluding remark is that actually culture does matter and it drives performance.
Okay. Excellent. From a new organization to a more experienced and well-standing one, please talk about Coca-Cola then.
Great. Well, from a Coca-Cola perspective, the company has been around for 129 years. So as you said, we're a whole lot older than you all are. And part of being able to be around that long is that you have to embrace a culture of change and that you have to recognize your culture is going to continually change. So we operate in 207 countries around the world. Our system is made up of independent bottlers as well as company associates, so 700,000 of them around the world, which makes culture interesting. And I think one of the things that we've done is try to be as local as possible, so maintain wherever we are that local connection to the community. Our chairman and CEO says when Coca-Cola comes into a market, we come in and we stay, we plant roots. We don't bring a suitcase in, we build plants, we build lines, we build infrastructure. And I think that culture of being connected and having to make a difference in the communities where you live and where you work has really helped us build a very unique culture where our brands are about refreshment and optimism and bringing moments of happiness, but that from a people and an employee standpoint, we are also about giving back and doing the best that we can. And that changes all the time, and how you do that and how you reinforce it with the next generation is very, very important. And it's something we strive to do every single day and hope that we can be in business for another 129 years.
Sounds good. Kip, interesting in your position, having started small and got big, how does that fit in with the culture that you've had?
Well, I think if you are lucky enough to start a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you have this great privilege and great responsibility to sort of create the culture around your personal life view and your personal philosophies. And so we're very much a conscious capitalist company. We're based on 7 foundation principles that were kind of the 7 best thoughts I had ever learned or taught or and wrote down. And we're basically, as you mentioned, truly an employee-first culture. Milton Friedman famously said that the only reason a corporation exists is to maximize the return of the shareholder. And we're like, Milton, I know you want a Nobel Prize and everything, but with all due respect, at the Container Store, what we do is we believe if you actually really and truly take better care of the customer, take better care of the employee than anybody else. I mean, if you just knock yourself out taking care of her better than anyone else, she really and truly will take care of the customer better than anybody else. And if those 2 people are ecstatic, then your shareholder is going to be ecstatic too. And so I'm very committed to the concepts of conscious capitalism. And weirdly enough, my old college roommate, John Mackey, the Whole Foods founder, is also very involved with this. And we're running businesses, so we can't go around speaking too much. But when we speak, we're usually talking about conscious capitalism. And the simplest way to think about our culture or conscious capitalism is the very vigorous belief that business is not a zero-sum game. You know, you're really trying to take care of the stakeholder model. You're trying to take care of not only the employee and not only the customers, but the vendors, you know, the community, the environment. And I think what works is that you wind up having employees that join the company and never leave. You have vendors who you become their favorite customer. You know, landlords become your favorite tenant. When you operate in that manner, I think the universe kind of conspires to assist you. Mm-hmm. And I think very simply, it's easier to do well in business when people are conspiring to assist you than when they're laying awake at night trying to figure out how to get back at you. So.
Yeah, that's a really good comment, and Milton Friedman wasn't known for his leadership. Genevieve, from your perspective, new organization and online.
We're a new organization founded in 2006 by Brian and Lisa Sugar. I'm assuming most of the people in this audience have never heard of Pop Sugar, Shop Style. We actually touch 1 out of every 3 millennial women in the US every month, 1 in 4 millennial women in the UK through our Pop Sugar and Shop Style properties. That's 75 million visitors that we have to Pop Sugar every month, over 670 million page views. So we're actually very much ingrained with women between the ages of 18 and 35. Pop Sugar, our standing motto is power your happy. We're all about being positive, sending positive messages to women, being your best friend, making sure that you're never being mean. I think that's, there are lots of content sites out there and also retailers where they have a very clear kind of culture and personality, and we're always very, very upbeat. And you see that culture within the business. And it's actually one of the reasons why you listed all the companies I've worked for before. I've worked at a lot of big corporates, but I did start in a family business with 300 employees, and I always watched how my father interacted with individuals, always treating people with humanity. It doesn't matter if they're working on the factory floor or they're working in the head office. I think what we see at Pop Sugar is I see that same type of culture, which is, employees are valued. We're actually, one of the facts that I want to put out is that 77% of our staff is actually female. More than half of the leadership team is female. So there's a very, very different kind of dynamic that we have within the company as a result. We are very, very agile. I'm not going to use the word momentum that was used earlier today, but we have a leadership team that very much believes in change and really catering to kind of what is new and happening at that time, because we're creating content with 100 different content creators every day, and the only way that we can be relevant is if we're really, really in tune with what's going on. So we all have to be very, very dynamic and understanding what's going on in our surroundings.
What is interesting, though, is that when we talk about change, often we assume that you need to have a reason to get people to want to change. And many people say, oh, you need a burning platform. And from my perspective, having worked with many organizations, the real challenge is not with the organization that has a disaster about to hit it. It's with the organization that's doing reasonably well, is flourishing, and you have to have a reason to say, we need to go up a gear. How do you achieve that in your environment, Julie?
I'll be happy to start with that one. One of the things that you point out is that a burning platform is a great way to change culture. I think calling on customers and leading customer relationships is also a great way to lead change and to have a call for change. So in our case, we work with 24 million customer partners, whether those are big global retailers all the way down to the smallest mom and pops in Argentina or in Myanmar. And they are all important. And by staying close to their needs, what's important to them, what help do they need, where are they going, what are they struggling with, I think it helps us constantly adapt and change our culture as well. So we need different skills than we did 5 years ago to call on both of those sets of different customers, the big and the small. And when you're constantly evolving to meet the needs of a customer, I think it gives you a burning platform, and it gives you a purpose and a vision as to why you would change and why you need to constantly bring in new talent, why you need to evolve your skills and training in the entire way that you look at organization.
So effectively, just good enough is not good enough.
Correct, and your customers will always tell you that.
Absolutely. Ahmed.
I think there are always situations where a burning platform makes a lot of sense, and it sort of gets people together to tackle sometimes what seems uninsurmountable challenges. But also you have to recognize that in our context, we operate in a very young market, and we operate in a young, fantastic, and very dynamic city, the city of Dubai. And we have a very diverse workforce. We have 80 nationalities working for Majid Futtaim, 80, which is as diverse as it gets for a company that operates in 14 markets. And the average age of people who work for Majid Futtaim are around 24, 25, so very young. So these are people who are born digital. I mean, I'm a digital immigrant. Most of my friends or colleagues have migrated to digital at some point in time. Some are still trying to make that trip. But actually, they're born digital. And the way they view leadership, what they're looking to get out of their job is very different. And they're looking for authenticity. So what we found in our experience, it's about not creating a burning platform, but being very open about the ambition, the challenges that we face. And if you're open and ambitious enough, we found that people naturally engage. And they help you sort of create that positive momentum around inspiration and change.
Genevieve.
Well, the burning platform for us is what's happening in popular culture every day. Yes. So we just have to remain relevant and make sure that we're following the right story. So we actually do things from a technology point of view, using big data, going out and looking what is being written from the different bloggers, the news feeds, Twitter, always keeping on top of what is trending to make sure that we're actually involved in the dialogue. I totally agree with you about, we have a very, very young employee base. And it's very, very different than when you come from an employee base that's significantly older. And I'll say I've gone through my own personal struggles as a leader in the organization, coming out of a large corporate and then working with a very, very young and dynamic team who are no longer motivated by the same kind of motivations that we were probably taught as we were growing up to be motivated by. And when you do that, you have to form kind of a company culture that allows people to have their identity, get their needs met from the organization, and to really sit there and have them actually believe that the time that they're spending is for a worthwhile purpose. And it's a very different thing from the whole shareholder thing, the revenues that you're being driven. There's just that inner purpose that people want to have.
Maybe just one example to illustrate on that. I mean, when you look at the way all modern sort of brands today communicate with customers, we communicate in a digital fashion. It's a conversation. It's not one way. It's very social. And then when you look at the way many companies, and certainly where we were a few years ago, we were communicating using very different tools and a very different tone internally. So most of our communication started with, "Dear colleagues, I'm delighted to inform you." Could you imagine communicating in the same manner on Twitter or on Instagram to your customers? So actually, what we had to change, that we had to bring some of the practices from customer engagement internally into the company for employee engagement. So I no longer send any announcements. We use a social sort of engagement tool called Yammer, like Google Plus or Facebook, to basically have that conversation with employees within the company. And all of a sudden, you start a conversation. In 7 years with Majid Futtaim, I don't think anyone has ever replied to an email announcement. Certainly not to me. But when you look at announcements on Yammer, our social media platform internally, there is a buzz of communication, some of it positive, some of it is challenging, and you need to be open and ready to respond to that. So I'd say one of the things we've learned is we tend to sometimes be very progressive on the way we engage with customers and not use the same tools and the same techniques that we know work with customers internally with our employees.
The fact that actually some people say you should think of your employees as your first customers.
Correct.
But Kip, you've seen this from when you started, sort of 78, developing in terms of culture, and you're obviously in a good space, but still changing for the better.
Well, you know, I just really believe that if you're lucky enough to be somebody's employer, you have sort of a large, huge, really moral obligation to make sure they look forward to getting out of bed and coming to work in the morning. And probably the two best ways to go about doing that are communication. One of our 7 foundation principles is communication and leadership are the same thing. That's what leadership is, you know, communication. The vast majority of our top executives are women. I think that helps. I mean, you hate to make generalizations, but guess who tends to communicate better? And you know, and so communication is leadership. And the second most important thing, I believe, is that you get to another foundation principle is 1 great person is equal to 3 good people. So if you really believe that, you can pay them better, you can train them better. But why hire anybody other than great people? And if you do that, it's delightful to get out of bed and go to work with these other great people. You know, when I was in the 5th grade, this girl in the 5th grade, she liked me, and I knew she liked me. And I couldn't get over the fact that she liked me, though, because she was the coolest girl in the whole school. But she liked me, and I just could. It made me really want to go to school in the morning. And I think you can, really feel that way about the people you're lucky enough to work with. And so communication and getting to work with truly great people, I think that's what does it.
What is interesting, though, is if you look at the increasingly globalized world, if you look at the degree to which, now chief executives say we have a culture, but if you take any organization, we know there's multiple cultures existing within any organization. You know, if you look at, for example, customer-facing support functions, if you look at an organization that has a significant engineering or scientific function, plus sales functions, completely different ways of perceiving the world. Different geographies, different cultures from different places. You were saying, Ahmed, 80 nationalities. So to create a consistent culture, how do you do that in a way that is consistent for the organization's approach to its customers, yet allows individuality to those individuals who come from those different backgrounds? So kick off with that one.
You know, I think it sounds strange, but the way that we've achieved that is by agreeing to the ends, you know, the 7 foundation principles, and then realizing that we're not smart enough to tell thousands of people how to behave in any given situation. Retail's too situational for that. Life's too situational. So you liberate the employees to find their own means to the end. And if we don't agree on the ends, if we don't agree that fill the other guy's basket to the brim, making money then becomes an easy proposition, something Andrew Carnegie said on his deathbed, that tells you how to operate on many, many different levels. So we agree on those sort of golden rule-ish. If you don't have that agreement, well, then you're thousands of yahoos going in thousands of different directions.
Yeah.
But you can't tell them how to get there. And I think that makes a more joyful workplace. And everybody does it, and it also allows people to celebrate being themselves. They're rewarded and they're successful because they're who they are, not duplications of who I think they should be.
Well, Julie, you obviously have that challenge with Coca-Cola.
Yes, I would say that really, to build on your point, is it starts with that vision and the values, and then hopefully recruiting in really great people. I think one of the areas that often gets overlooked in the importance of culture is the manager. People work every day for the manager. They leave companies because of managers. That's the number one reason. And I think a lot of times you forget the importance that role plays in building culture, because they do take those values and the vision and interpret them for their own team. And as you said, it's a bunch of smaller cultures. And I think making sure that you've got the communication and that you are really preparing those managers for the culture that you want, and then empowering them to bring that to life within their own teams is really, really critical. And you spend a lot of time recruiting to change your culture or to improve your culture or keep your culture fresh. You spend a lot of time bringing in people, and it's really that frontline manager that then they work for, and they're kind of your first line, and I think they're critically important to keeping that vision, keeping your culture fresh, new, and moving forward. So
you have to make sure that frontline manager is embodying the culture completely.
Exactly.
Because if not, they run off all your best people.
Which sort of generally, I mean, that's the point. You know, people, chief executives in particular, seem to think that this culture thing is handed down from the boardroom on tablets of stone. You know, the question is therefore, actually, what really influences the culture of the organisation? Is it just as much the remuneration policy as it is what the chief executive says? Is it just as much what the line manager does? Is it just as much what the peers of the individual do and what that little group thinks? So
but I think
generally
there's also an identity for a company, and I think that's why somebody like Coke can be as successful as it is in over 200 countries. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like my job when I came on, I'm clearly American. I've been in Europe for 15 years. I actually work in the London office. I don't work in the San Francisco office. But I was brought in to bridge the gap by taking a very American, cheerleading, blonde California girl, and trying to create an identity for Pop Sugar in Europe. And I think when you get that thread, you're able to actually like create more of the culture. So of course the values are all there, but if you have that kind of, you know, and actually since we're so small, we're only 500 people, but we actually still bring everyone together once a year in San Francisco. And that's actually an incredibly amazing bonding experience and really motivates people because they actually see, you know, what it's like when you're sitting in San Francisco and with the corporate office, and they kind of come back and they're very rejuvenated because they actually see kind of how, you know, the head office is running and kind of the mentality. And it's also leadership transfer. You know, it's having people come from, you know, San Francisco over to London and making sure that people are very visible. Because I think the more that people actually see their leadership team, the more they're wanting to kind of buy into it if they are actually on board with what they believe the values are. And I think the more presence you have, the greater your chance for success.
Which links in, Ahmed, exactly to the leading by example, which your organisation.
I mean, leaders at any level within the organization cast a very sort of tall shadow, and they have a profound impact on whether sort of people believe in the vision, people believe in the values, or they think they're sort of cafeteria wallpaper. And it's as much as defining what's in as defining what's out, and making sure that when you're making decisions, sometimes or often you are actually taking into account your values and you're taking into account your vision in making that decision. So if we are in the business of creating great moments every day, we're not going to build a mediocre shopping mall. We're not going to develop a substandard Carrefour store with our partners. And it's not just business decisions, it's also people decisions, that we're not going to sort of promote very talented, very well-performing people if they do not fit in the culture, and if they are unable, for example, to develop the next sort of generation of talent within Majid Futtaim. And actually, when you do that, when you make some sort of principle-driven, tough decisions, that's when the organization also starts to believe that it's actually authentic, and it's not just sort of corporate talk.
But there's one, I actually want to say something about employees, and you shouldn't be afraid if it doesn't work to cut someone loose. And I think that's the thing. Like, not everybody will fit into your brand culture. And you know, the longer sometimes somebody's in it, the harder it is for you to actually keep the identity. And it's something that I've learned very much, that you know, sometimes you have to take hard decisions in order to make sure that the culture actually continues to thrive.
Okay. Just to conclude then, one piece of advice you would give to anyone in the audience, a one-liner on how they can get their culture right as a leader. Starting off, Julie.
I would say very simply, listen to your customer and listen to your employee. They know, they will tell you, and you can learn so much from that. So I think that would be my point.
Kip.
You know, create an organization where everybody in the create an organization where everyone thrives. I mean, it's kind of this weekend, just focus on making everybody around you thrive, and you will have the best weekend you've had in some time.
Sounds good. Ahmed.
I think the headline for me is about being consistently authentic. I think that's very important. You have to always walk the talk. You have to lead by example. You have to make sure that decisions are aligned by values, and you have to spend time on culture. I mean, all of us have been on strategic retreats and strategic planning workshops, and as similar to formulating a strategy, working on a culture takes time, and you need to put the time. And we now sort of encourage all of our leaders to spend a good chunk of their time on the people and culture agenda, especially as we get bigger and bigger as an organization. And we have an ambition to double again in the next 5 years. So we want to be a $2 billion EBITDA in 2020, and we're not going to do that incrementally, and we're not going to do that simply by continuing to do the same. And we need to excite, very young, very talented people to come and work for Majid Futtaim and be part of that story, not because of financial targets, but because they want to be there. It's a good place to work. They find a meaning to their work, and they're excited to wake up and come to work every day.
Yeah. And finally, Genevieve.
Well, there was the presentation yesterday about the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps, and it was all about people. And I think allowing people to be who they are within the context of what you're trying to build as a company will allow you to actually be successful.
Absolutely right, and you have stolen my closing remarks when I was going to say it's all about people from start to finish. But that's what the reality is. And just to finish off, we have a short video, I believe, from you, Ahmed, about what you're doing.
I mentioned about our ambition to double again in the next 5 years, and a cornerstone of that is creating a culture about internal innovation and entrepreneurship. And given that we are in the business of creating great moments, we launched a challenge early this year. And the challenge is to the 30,000 people who work for Majid Futtaim to come up with the next great moment. Because if you believe you're in the business of creating great moments, what is a great moment or experience today is not so great tomorrow. It sort of tends to depreciate over time. And we've started that process that has created tremendous buzz and excitement within the company. And that short video will give you a glimpse into that. And hopefully next year we'll be able to expand it even to our community and not just the employees.
Excellent.
Another great moment is to achieve $1 billion in EBITDA. That's pretty great. So.
Yes, indeed. Let's see the video, ladies and gentlemen.
Ideas to us. We now today are in the 48-hour hackathon process, and it's just great to see the camaraderie and collaboration that's in the room.
We always give our employees the sense of ownership, the sense of creativity, the sense of making things happen. We try to tell every single person in our business that you are very important and every single thought you have matters for business.
People from all nationalities. This is a very big opportunity for me to work with more than 60 nationalities in Majid Futtaim Group. So I hope I have a big contribution to the company together with my experience. I see that many people in our group are capable of bringing innovative ideas, and I feel that I am in a very challenging environment. Everyone has a value added, to the company.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to the panel, and thank you to you.